It's a big question. What can we learn about collaborative governance because of the times that we live in? So we live in these liminal times, I would say, in a time between worlds, when the sort of institutions that we need for the future are not the institutions that we currently have. And so how we organize and govern ourselves for the future needs to be questioned, right? So one of the key learnings is that if we are to have futures where we are contributing to the health of the planet, where we are contributing to the health of future generations, we need to organize ourselves differently because our current institutions do not even have those accountabilities built in. So for example, we have nation states which have had time to reach Paris targets for many years, and they're simply not. Not because there isn't some will, but because it's literally in the rational interest of many nation states not to reach those goals. So we have this situation where, as societies, we need to advance, we need to change. It's clear that we need to change because of climate imperatives, because of equality and how it's increasing around the world, and yet we don't have collaborative governance or government institutions that is actually working toward that in a unified way that is planetary. So that's one of the key learnings, that how we organize for change needs to change. So I see a lot of hope for the future of collaborative governance. And in fact, I see it as absolutely essential. And that can take many forms. And with this group and with the leadership of Arantzazulab, I think we have a lot of scope for possibility. So some of the things that we've been exploring are the following. One is we're thinking about the role of small nations around the world, because we see some of the greatest progressive change. We see some of the most ambitious transformative agendas in small nations. So I'm talking about the Basque Country itself, talking about places like New Zealand, Finland, Iceland, Wales, Scotland, indigenous nations around the world, many others, Costa Rica, Bhutan. So many small nations have tremendous potential, and we can imagine even a coalition of these nations being able to show the way towards different ways of organizing, even different kinds of logics, different kinds of building of collective wisdom that we need societally and that are not in the larger institutional logics. So that's just one example where we think we can learn from new kinds of coalitions. In that vein, I also think it's very important to almost reframe how we think about democratizing. We use that term a lot. How do we democratize this or democratize that? And that's challenging for a number of reasons that relate to how technologies have evolved, how social media has evolved into what are now broken information ecologies, I would say. And so instead of framing in that way, I would argue that we should reframe as what we were trying to do is build collective intelligence and also build collective wisdom. Because right now, what our societies lack collectively is that building of collective wisdom. And right now, that's not something even in the logics of our government institutions, collective wisdom. And yet, how will we ever achieve the kinds of transformative change we need if we are not building at societal level collective wisdom? And that's what I see as the potential. It's a very high ambition, but that's actually what we need in these times. That's what these times call for. One of the things that we wanted to learn about is how some existing initiatives that are using forms of collaborative governance, whether they're having transformative potential and what we can learn from them. And one of the things that I'm working on that was part of the research is Participatory City in Canada. And it's about really creating a new kind of social infrastructure. And we're looking at how we can actually grow and scale it from a place-based initiative to a networked set of initiatives to actually something that is global. And so in that, we're trying to learn what does social infrastructure for the future look like in ways that are radically inclusive, that are inviting the creativity of everyone, and that can actually invite people to actually co-create and have agency in how they create and how they look at the future of society. And so doing that both at very local scale, but also connecting it to planetary kinds of working and aspiration is also highly motivational to people. So we think that there's great promise there, and building the kind of learning infrastructure for that project will also have implications for learning in other initiatives and other kinds of collaborative governance. So that's the promise of that work.